Let me give you my reasoning here as to why I think it's very possible that Donald Trump can win. I think it's very possible that Donald Trump could lose by a landslide and he could win by a significant margin. All scenarios are possible. However, the polls want to give you one side of the story right now where only one scenario is possible, and that's Joe Biden winning by a significant margin, though that margin is shrinking as we go into election time. Also, I should note, I haven't been able to do all of the fact-checking on this yet, but there are some polls that were included in 2016 as part of the RCP rolling average that are not included this go-around, and I have no idea why. Keep that up. So that is important to keep in mind that Biden's lead is more significant than Hillary Clinton's, okay? But his margin the margins in many swing states are actually lower. Right. And again, all of those margins are generally shrinking. This was, I think, taken from this weekend. By the time you're watching this, what are we, October? This was taken from October 17th, I believe. So if someone goes, just go to RCP and just click time machine.
There's a date stamp on the show.
Okay. So looking at those margins that you see all those toss-up states, right, with the RCP averages, this is how they have the map looking effectively, the Electoral College map. Those are the states that are not filled in. They have Biden with 216 and Donald Trump with 125, which at first glance you're like, oh my gosh, okay, that looks pretty bad.
Sure, it does.
So again, I could be wrong about this. I'm no Nate Silver. I'm not even Nate Bronze. So I want to fill out the map here using a pretty simple formula. Because a lot of people say, well, how do we take into account the secret Trump voter? Okay, again, taking into consideration that the swing state margins are significantly lower than Hillary Clinton. Okay, I'll only give President Trump, when filling out this map, I'll only give him the states that either A, in which he outperformed his poll significantly, or B, won by a very wide margin, meaning either double digits or close to double digits, okay? So, for example, let me kind of go through this. Yeah. Michigan. This is a story, and this is a perfect example of how the media can kind of take facts and present them selectively, which they do less and less because they just make up facts. Like Joe Biden. It's well known that Joe Biden has a stutter. It's not even known that he has a stutter, and it certainly isn't even known that it was widely known because you wouldn't have had to say it.
Yeah.
So, Michigan. Everyone talks about how popular Biden is and how Trump only won Michigan by 0.5, like by a half a percentage point. Okay? And that is true. Donald Trump only won Michigan by half a percentage point. You remember on election night, I was as shocked as anybody.
You didn't think it was going to happen
I didn't think he was going to win Michigan. But here's the thing that's important that the media isn't telling you. The final polls had Hillary Clinton up over 11%, 11.6%, and Trump won by between 0.3, 0.5.
Wow.
So that's a big deal when you look at Biden. He's only up by, what is he up by 6 point something in Michigan?
Yeah. 6.7.
So he's up by 6.7 in Michigan. They had Hillary Clinton up by 11%. So if you actually look at that, he outperformed the polling average, not one individual poll, the polling average in all of Michigan by a full 12%. Wow. 12 points. Think about it. When they talk about margin of error, it's usually 2 or 3%. Right. Donald Trump outperformed in Michigan when compared to Hillary Clinton by 12 percentage points to get that half.
Wow.
If he were to outperform Biden by 12 percentage points, he would win it by 7%.
Yeah, it would be a landslide.
So this is why I say the key does come. If the secret Trump voter is still a thing, he could very easily overtake Biden in Michigan, especially since, again, the trend is recent polling has Biden by significantly less. Let's look at Wisconsin. That's another example. I was very surprised with Wisconsin. Trump only won by 0.7%. Okay? Understand. I understand that's not a lot. Mm-hmm. But they had Clinton up going into the election by 7% in 2016. Ooh. By 7%. Wow. That means that Donald Trump outperformed those polls by 8%. So this is one thing when people say, actually, the polls had it relatively right because Hillary Clinton did win the popular vote. They didn't even have it close to right in the swing states. So wrong that states that didn't even consider swing states all of a sudden became Trump states. Michigan wasn't considered a swing state. No, Wisconsin wasn't considered a swing state. Then they became Trump states because no one thought, well, how could he? Listen, there's no margin of if a poll has a margin of error of plus or minus 12 to 15, and there's almost no value in a fucking poll. But that is what happened. That is what happened. You sons of bitches and just plain bitches. I'm sorry. This is important. The polls have become a means to manipulate public opinion. Yes. And it is true the polls were generally right. And this is what frustrates me when you see conservatives say this, who I agree with on a whole lot, say, well, actually, the polls were pretty right. No, they were not even close in the swing states. And we were one of the few shows that covered that election live stream all night, and we were very surprised. Then we look at, again, so Wisconsin, Biden's only up by 6.3%. So it's not a sure win. That's not what I'm saying.
No.
But I'm saying based on the polling accuracy that you've seen in the states, it's certainly within the margin of error. And then I'm going to apply another formula here, a couple of different possibilities. But first, please do hit the notification bell if you're subscribed on YouTube, because subscriptions don't mean a whole lot. The notification bell lets you know on your mobile phone. And also, if you don't want to hit it because it burns hitting the click button, or maybe you have an iPad and you don't want to touch it. I just wiped the screen. Well, then maybe you shouldn't have eaten fresh donuts. So let me give you a couple of different scenarios. So using that methodology where I'm only giving some of those toss-up states to Trump if he won them by a wide margin or outperformed his polls by a huge margin, this is what that map looks like. Okay? Now, I want to be clear. I'm not saying that's what the election will look like.
It's like a massacre. Yeah.
And see, notice Arizona isn't even in there, which is still a potential toss-up. So I'm actually playing that somewhat conservatively using that methodology. But let me give you a more conservative version, okay? Here's a more conservative version because the polls were so inaccurate, and I want to highlight the point here. When anyone tells you the polls were actually right in the popular vote, that's not the issue. The polls were way off on the state vote. So I am now going to fill in the map, only moving the toss-ups to Donald Trump if he outperformed the polls by a minimum of 7 percentage points. Here's what that map looks like. So that's only 7 points. That's a lot. That's way outside the margin of error. Margin of error is usually 2.5 to 3%. Okay. So here's another version, okay? If we go down the list and say, all right, 7%, that's an extreme version to make a point that those are actually probably leaning Trump. I feel pretty confident about that map where a lot of those may be leaning Trump.
Yeah.
Now let's go down the list and say, okay, let's just take the states where Donald Trump in 2016 outperformed the polls by a minimum of 5 percentage points. And this is exactly what that electoral map looks like. And you get 277. And that's, again, Arizona's not filled in, nor Georgia.
Wow.
Now, I'm not saying that he's going to win Wisconsin, he's going to win Michigan. I'm not saying he's going to win Pennsylvania. I'm just saying that there are a lot of possibilities here.
Yeah.
And if someone tells you the polls were right last time, they are wrong. And the polls were not only wrong, they were historically wrong. They were biblically wrong.
Yeah. Well, there's two great things in our favor with this, and I hate to say it, but one is that most of those voters that are fired up to go out and vote for Joe Biden are doing it by mail. That is a really bad way to go and vote, because historically, mail has been a horrible way to make sure your vote is counted. It ends up getting lost. It's not filled out correctly. So if you guys have done your entire campaign is vote by mail, you've basically just
by the way,
told
we have a
huge
running
percentage.
tally from our last segment. It's over 2 million votes that are potentially compromised by mail. 2 million votes that have been legally verified are potentially compromised. And I'm not saying voter fraud, but it includes all of the above: fraud and compromise. So when people say there's no evidence of mass scale voter fraud, well, actually there is evidence of voter fraud to the tune of tens of thousands. Absolutely.
Yeah,
And if you think that's
for sure.
significant, okay, fine. Then get the hell out. I don't say that. Like, if you don't like Donald Trump, leave America. I'm saying if you don't think that tens of thousands of votes that have been verified fraudulent in the past, if you don't think that matters, then you don't really care about free and fair elections. And then there are millions of votes that are potentially compromised just because. DMV.
Yeah.
The VA.
Yeah, do you trust them?
Medicare, Medicaid. Do you really think that
You need to go on.
handle elections?
And if Joe Biden loses, then it's going to be the Democrats talking about how unsafe mail-in voting is. Of course,
Massive
we can't trust it.
Massive mail-in voting is just the DMV with representatives.
It's a nightmare.
It's just remote DMV.
Right.
I actually was going to say that nothing has made me more frustrated over the last couple of weeks of hearing folks lay at Donald Trump and the GOP's feet this idea of no peaceful transition or calling into question the election itself. When I feel like in the vast majority of that I've actually heard from the left. I mean, and we've made jokes and I guess they're not even jokes, they're true, about questioning this. You made this point last week about questioning it during the entirety of the 4 years, right? Mm-hmm. The legitimacy of the president's term. And I really do think that you're going to see even more strenuous complaints, arguments, screaming from the left in the event that Trump wins. Even on the 4th itself, we're going to see that by the end of the day, because I think you're going to see all these votes come in.
Right.
And they're going to go, no, wait till January.
What was that?
Yeah, really?
Do you want me to repeat that again?
I missed it. I totally
the
missed
Warrior
it.
Princess?
No. That's what they're going to do. Watch. You're
No,
going to
no,
see
no,
Jake
no,
Tapper.
no.
Jake
That's a
Tapper's
gift.
going to do it.
That's a
No.
gift for sure.
Thank
Well,
you.
look, I mean, I know that this is going to be close in some places, but the polling is a great point that you brought up. The mail-in ballot thing is going to be a huge issue, but there's one other thing in some of these swing states that's really big. Since March in Florida, states that let you register to vote by party and let you declare which party you're for, there's been over 100,000 more Republicans since March register in Florida than Democrats. New people registering. Pennsylvania since June, over 77,000 more. And North Carolina, we've been talking
young
about. That's
people.
central to their strategy to win, by the way, is North Carolina. Over 25,000 more Republicans registering to vote for the first time than Democrats.
Yeah.
Just
Is that Gen
this
Z?
year.
Wow.
Right?
Could
So
be
that's
Gen
a
Z.
huge thing that we haven't even factored
Could
into
just be the
any of these
Boilermakers.
polls. Yeah, but we haven't
Yeah.
factored in the stuttering campaign.
I
That's
think
gonna be a big-
there is definitely a secret Trump voter, but I think there are also people who are lying to the pollsters and then like hanging up like
yeah.
Bart Simpson and just laughing really
Every time.
All of my old
got 'em.
neighbors brag about how they lie to the pollsters. I mean, you know, my one neighbor who's like in his 90s.
Yeah.
I said, well, have you? I said, I've never actually had one of these poll takers call me. Have you? He goes, oh yeah. I said, really? Yeah, all the time. So they must be pulling people like you. He goes, yeah, just lie. He goes back to trimming his hedges. I go, wait, you lie? Yeah. So what do you mean?
Yeah.
I told him I'm voting Biden.
Well, nobody lies the other way.
No, yeah.
No.
Nobody's going to be
Why would you
I'm voting Trump.
lie the other way?
Yeah,
it doesn't
exactly.
It's like,
happen at all.
please, can someone shoot me in the chest at point blank range
Yeah.
because I live in Portland? I mean,
Yeah.
think about this for a second. People were voting Trump, kind of a roll of the dice, right? A lot of people here held their nose, okay?
Yeah,
Like,
sure.
we don't know at that point. But you weren't being shot in the streets for voting for Donald
Right,
Trump. That is
exactly.
actually
Yeah.
what is happening right now. And you wonder why people may be more secretive and they're voting for Trump.
It doesn't make any sense.
I'm not saying he's going to win, but I am saying that it could go either way.
Yeah.
And you certainly shouldn't lose all hope. And you shouldn't trust all of the polls because that guy, what is that?
Watch Good Morning Mug Club live every Monday through Thursday at 10:15 Eastern.